red truck over here. I think it looks really cool. So I'm going to left click on that vehicle, drag it into our hierarchy on the left side of Unity. When I let go, you can see that our vehicle has now been added into this large area in the center called our scene view. So all of our assets in our assets folder are what we use to populate our scene with different objects like our trucks. If we wanted to add some cool environmental props, maybe some boxes or trees, mountains, whatever we want to add, that's all stored in our assets folders, and then we can drag and drop them into our hierarchy to add them to our scene. Now, the hierarchy actually keeps track of all of the different objects that are currently there. So we have our camera, we have a light, we have some environment, and then we have our vehicle that we just added. Now, to really see our vehicle and experience the scene view that allows us to visualize everything that's happening in our game, what you can do is hover over the scene view with your mouse. If you hold the right mouse button, right click, and then you can actually move using the W, A, S, and D keys on your keyboard. So if I press W, I can zoom in. If I press S, I actually fly backwards. If I press A, I fly to the left. If I press D, I fly to the right. So you can use all of these in tandem, and you can actually move your mouse while you're flying around, so you can see all around your scene. Now, I have a problem here. I've gotten myself lost. I actually don't know where I am. I can see these nice mountains, though. So, in your hierarchy, if you make sure that your vehicle, your truck is selected, you can see it's highlighted in blue, so you know it's selected. If you want to make sure, on the right side of Unity, you can see in your inspector, this actually shows you what the current object is selected, which is our truck. With my mouse now hovering over our scene view, if I press the F key on our keyboard, this will actually focus or frame back in our object that we have selected in our hierarchy. So that's super helpful. Another thing that we can do if we just want to get a 360-degree view, if we want to see all around this truck, we can actually hold down the Alt key on our keyboard. And then with our left click, if we drag to the left or to the right, we can actually rotate around. And what this is actually doing is it's rotating around the center point of our screen, which in this case is our vehicle, because we use our F key to focus on it. So now we can see all around our truck. And then another helpful thing that we can do is if we press the Alt key down and hold it again, we can actually use our right mouse button. And if we click and drag that, if we go to the left, we actually zoom out. And if we go to the right, we can actually zoom in. So, using all of these different keys, we can navigate around our scene, focus on different objects, and take a look at them in depth. A really helpful keyboard shortcut to know is the undo action. So, for example, with my vehicle selected, if I accidentally moved that vehicle when I was just trying to navigate around the scene, I can press Ctrl Z or Command Z, and that will undo my most recent action. This is super helpful to know just in case you ever accidentally move something, or say you adjust something and you don't like the way that it's positioned in your world. You can just undo that to set it back. One thing to note is undo will only undo our most recent action. So, in order to get this vehicle back to where it started, since I actually changed this object 3 different times, I have to use Ctrl Z or Command Z 1, 2, 3 times, and it will set it backwards. So, it's very helpful to remember the undo shortcut on your keyboard. So that way, in case you ever accidentally move something or you just don't like the way that something's positioned, you can just reset it back to what it was before. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab one of your vehicles out of the course library, whichever one you want, left click and drag it into the hierarchy. And then when your vehicle is added to the scene, get used to playing around with all of the different ways that you can navigate your scene view. With your mouse cursor hovering over the scene view, if you hold right click down, you can move your camera around as you move your cursor. if you use the different keys like W, A, S, and D, learn how to move around in the world. Make sure you get some practice in also focusing on your object in case you either get lost or you want a better view. So go into your hierarchy on the left, select your vehicle, with your cursor over the scene view, press the F key on your keyboard so that you can frame or focus in on that object. Play around with rotating around the object, so you can press the Alt key, hold it down, and then press and hold your left click on your mouse, and you can rotate it around your vehicle while it's centered in your scene. And then you can even get some practice in pressing and holding the Alt key, clicking and holding your right mouse button, and then dragging it to the left to zoom out or dragging it to the right to zoom in. So get very comfortable with moving and navigating around your scene, focusing around your vehicle, rotating around it, zooming in and out to get a closer look of it. These are very important things to know to navigate your scene. So the easier it will be to move around your scene and get comfortable with seeing all of your different objects and where they're placed, the easier it will be as you make your game. So go play around with the different navigation keys, and now it's your turn.
Okay. Alright, so here we are. We have, hold on, let me make one tiny little adjustment. There we go. Alright. And, now we just have to follow said instructions. Alright, in the project window, open Assets, Course Library, Vehicles, to drag a vehicle into the hierarchy. Project window. Oops. Packages, project window. Uh, Close that. Go to course library. Oops. Course library. Go to vehicles. We shall get the red one and drag it to the hierarchy. Drop it off and wait. And there it is. Highlighted. It's highlighted. Alright. Okay. Hold right click and watch to fly the vehicle. Then try to rotate around it. Alright. Okay. Alright. Here we are flying around. Woo. Ooh, oh, that's super fast. Alright. It picks up speed. Hold it. So you can just tap it. Okay. Wow, this is so smooth. Got it. Okay. What else we got? Um, um, with the vehicle selected and your mouse in scene view, press F to focus on it. F to focus on it. Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Alright. Um, then use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out and hold the scroll wheel to pan. Oh, wow. Okay. That is cool. Okay. Oh, neat. Okay, neat. Oh, excuse me while I blow my nose. I'm gonna mute. Forgive me. Here we go. Okay, now mouse wheel. I gotta remember all these things. Hold Alt plus left click around. Okay. Alright. This is how you do the nice. And now to do zoom. Got it. Neat. Okay. Nice. And if you get it all wrong, that's easy to do till it's fixed. Alright, so we're going to mark this as completed. I'm probably going to have to copy and paste that somewhere so I can remember that. So I will probably make a note. Yeah, I will make a note of that. Alright, so let's move on to 4. Add an obstacle and reposition it. The next thing our game needs is an obstacle. We need to choose one and position it in front of the vehicle. 1.1. Start your 3D engines. Step 4. Add an obstacle and reposition it.
We've added a vehicle to our scene. Now the next thing that we need to add is an obstacle. So we're going to choose one and place it in front of the player. Make sure to watch me before you do this yourself. Now, down in our project window where we got our vehicles, we're going to make sure that we go to the sidebar, select our course library so that we can see all of the other folders inside of our course library. And then we're going to go to the obstacles folder and double click. And you can see here we have all of these different options that we can select from. I'm going to choose this crate because our truck actually has some boxes on it, so it looks kind of similar. So this time I'm going to left click and drag our crate, but instead of going into the hierarchy, I'm going to drag it directly into our scene view, and you can see that it's actually updating live wherever my mouse is positioned. And in fact, if I drag it closer to the road, it actually snaps directly onto the road. I can even do it with the car. Look, there's a box on the car. So I'm going to release my mouse button now, and you can see our box has been positioned in our scene. Now, in Unity, we actually have coordinates to keep track of where our objects are in the world. So, for example, our truck is actually in the center, the exact center of this virtual world we've created. At 0, 0, 0, you can see that by going and clicking on the truck, make sure it's selected. On the right side of Unity, you can see the inspector window pop up, and it expands. Underneath the inspector, at the very top of all of the different options, there's our transform. These are called components. So our transform component specifically carries the data around our position, our rotation, and our scale. The rotation and scale we'll get to in a little bit. With our position, you can see that it's set to 0, 0, 0. If I compare that to our crate, by selecting our crate, you can see that the crate information is now in our inspector. Our crate is positioned at 4.8, negative 0.0 on the Y, and then 4.26 on the Z. Handily, you can actually tell all of these different letters from these arrows over here on our box. So, currently we have our Move tool selected. You can actually see which tools we currently have selected in the top left. We'll go through some of the other ones in a bit. With our Move tool, you can see the up arrow. So in fact, if I left click and drag on this green arrow, you can see over on the right side in our inspector, the Y position changes. If I want to undo what I just did, I can use Control or Command Z. You can do the same thing with the X, which in this case is this red arrow. And I'll undo that with Control or Command Z. And with the blue arrow, this is RZ. So I'll undo that. So I'm going to reposition this crate, and I can do this one of two ways. I can either do it by going to the inspector on the right underneath our transform. If I actually select the box, you can see that all of the text is now highlighted. I can actually type in 0. And if I type in 0, you can see that now our box is moved all the way in front of our vehicle. Now, if I were to set all of these to 0, that would take a really long time, and I don't want to do that. So, in our transform, you can actually see all the way on the right side of our component, there's this little gear icon. If you're using a new version of Unity, it will actually be 3 little dots instead of a gear. So if I left click on the gear icon, you can see that there are different options, and one of the options is reset position. So if I left click that, now our positions are set to 0, 0, 0.